Hey everybody, real quick before we dive into today's episode, I want to let you know that I'm doing a giveaway here on this podcast. So one of you can win a $50 Amazon gift card. What do you have to do to enter this giveaway? All you have to do is to leave me a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. And here's how you can do it. So open your phone, open the podcast app, go to my show, and there is a purple clickable link. You click on that, then scroll all the way down until you see ratings and reviews. And leave me a 5-star rating, leave me a review, and one of you will win that $50 Amazon gift card. I will announce the winner on the last episode in October. So good luck, and here is the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Balanced Vibes podcast. I am your host, Kirsten. In today's episode, we're going to talk about something completely different that doesn't have much to do with health and fitness, a little bit, but not a whole lot. And we're not going to talk about any specific nutrition or training advice, none of that. Actually, today we're going to talk about a little bit of my personal topic, which is how and why I changed my career, completely a total 180. And the reason that I thought about doing this podcast episode is that just yesterday, Facebook reminded me of the fact that 9 years ago, actually, I earned my PhD, and I got this little picture with me, holding my thesis in my hand, and, with all the flowers and stuff. And I was like, wow, that was actually 9 years ago already. So I started thinking, would it be interesting for you guys to learn more about this, like what I did, why I did it, and most importantly, why I decided to completely change my career, because I felt like I wasn't, fully aligned with what I was doing before. And so, as always, where do I go? I go to Instagram to ask people, because this is the fastest place to get feedback. So I asked people, hey, would you like to learn how this entire journey went down, because it's a big career shift, right? And a lot of people said that they would be interested. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Like I said, not a whole lot of nutrition and training stuff, but more like a personal thing. And I'm hoping that maybe for some of you who might be struggling, what you're doing currently, not completely happy, not completely aligned with this, to understand that you can make a change. You can make a change. Nobody says it's going to be super easy, but it is absolutely a possibility. And if this is not you, if you absolutely love what you're doing, maybe you just like to hear the story. So I would appreciate if you send me some feedback. Let me know how you like this episode, what you got out of it. All right. So actually, let's go back quite a bit. Let's go back to the times when I decided I'm going to get started with the whole thing called linguistics. So obviously, when I graduated high school, I was 18 years old. I didn't really have this like desire or burning kind of like clear knowing what I want to do. What do I want to do next? I was like, I had pretty good grades. I was good at languages. So languages have kind of always come relatively easy to me, compared to especially like science and math and chemistry, all that kind of stuff, which I absolutely hated in school. So languages were always easy for me. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do something with this, because of course, back then, the default was like, everybody's going to go to university, right? And this was the path for me too. And I never really thought about it the way that I think about it now, because, that was the trajectory that most people took. And what I would do probably differently now is that I would have taken at least a year or two to go and do something different where I get more like life experience. I was, even for a moment, I was considering maybe I should become an au pair and try that life out for a couple of years, or at least 1 year. But it was just like a passing thought, and I never really did anything with it. I didn't do anything with it. And so I just, just like most other people, I just headed right into the university. And I wasn't, like I said, very clear about what I wanted to do, but because I was fairly good at languages, I was like, okay, I'm going to study linguistics. Okay, so I got in there and started, studying all the things. I decided to choose the Finnish language as my major, but of course we did study learn a little bit about many, many languages. One thing that I want to say though is that when you meet a linguist and then you ask them, how many languages do you speak? Well, you might be disappointed because we may not be fluent in 15 different languages. This is not actually what linguistics is. Linguistics is something a little different. So actually, let me read you the definition of it. Linguistics is the scientific study of language, which encompasses all aspects of language, including cognitive, social, cultural, psychological, environmental, biological, literary, grammatical, and so on and so on. So the focus is on the systematic investigation of the properties of particular languages, as well as the characteristics of language in general. So the reason why I'm reading you this definition is that, yeah, like a lot of people think that what linguists do is like they have like 10 languages and they learn how to speak these languages. But this is not necessarily the case. We do get a taste of many different languages to understand the structure and the history and like a lot of other things, but it's not in-depth learning like how to speak, how to go to a restaurant, order food in Spanish, right? This is not actually what we do. So but yes, like I said, a lot of like little bit of like different languages, we get a taste of them. So for example, when I studied this, we definitely had Latin, which was pretty difficult. So all linguists had to study Latin, but also obviously we had some classes in English, and we learned a little bit of Russian and quite a bit of German, and of course Finnish was the major for me, and also a little bit of Swedish for me, because Swedish is also the second official language in Finland. So that's why I had to learn a little bit of that, or study, understand a little bit of that structure as well. But none of these languages, or not none of them, but I don't speak fluently these languages, right? So what I can speak is obviously Estonian, which is my native language, then English and Finnish. Finnish definitely was my second best for the longest time, and then English. And then I knew I could get by in German and Russian, but these two languages, I haven't used them in a very long time. So at this point, I have to say that I don't speak them. So you get like a little bit of this, like, you learn a little bit here and there, but you're not going to become fluent on them. Maybe some people do. And I think most linguists probably know more. I mean, they gotta know more than average person, but like I said, it's not like we can hold conversation in 15 different languages. Not, at least most of us don't do that. Anyway, so I studied that. I started my bachelor's degree, and I think it was the last year of my bachelor's. Then I got this scholarship that I could use, to go to another university for half a year or a year, or for actually one semester or 2 semesters. And I wanted to try this out so bad because I was kind of shy, always had been, and I was like, I want to go somewhere, but I don't want to go somewhere like too extreme where things would be too difficult. So I decided to go close to home, which is then I went to Finland for half a year to study there. Estonia and Finland are neighbor countries, and of course, because I was studying Finnish, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go to Finland. And this was my first experience, getting a scholarship, and later on, I got a lot of different scholarships. Actually, I was really lucky. It was a really great time. But that first time when I got the scholarship to University of Helsinki, I wasn't the typical exchange student who would just go out and party and drink like there's no tomorrow. Because to be honest with you, I didn't have the money for it. I got a scholarship, but this was barely to cover my rent, my dorm, right? And maybe there's a little bit left over, but I literally remember like there were days when I was counting pennies, like can I buy this food or can I not buy this food? So I was just barely getting by, but so let alone like partying and going crazy. I would go to like free events and make some friends there, but I was not like a super social person, and I didn't also have money to do a lot of things. But I would say also the personality. So I think I could have done a lot of stuff for free too and hang out with people more, but I was so introverted and so shy, and I was I spent more time in my dorm room studying Finnish grammar, but I got really good at it. I just, I geeked out on it, and I would hear sometimes people on Saturday night that would go out partying, and I was sitting in my dorm room and writing out some grammar structures and learning how this stuff really works. But it was great because I got a lot better at this. So this was my first experience with that. And like I said, after that, I got a lot more scholarships. So when I then finished my bachelor's degree, then the next thing was like, well, what do I do next now? And I still didn't have a plan. I didn't have a clear understanding of what do I want to do. I didn't have this like burning desire. I'm going to say that a lot of times. I didn't have this like burning desire to do a certain thing. I didn't know. So what did I do? Well, let's just keep going, right? Let's just keep then this stay on the same path of linguistics, and of course take the next step, which is we're going to work on my master's degree then. Well, I started doing that. I also had a really great supervisor throughout my master's and my doctorate. So we're really good friends. We're really great times, and he really supported me in any way possible. And so he was very inspiring. He believed in me a lot. And I think that was one of the things that definitely kept me on this path. So when I started my master's, I got another scholarship to University of Helsinki. Actually got two, one to Helsinki, and then a little while later, I got one to University of Tampere, which both are in Finland. So I studied in both of them, and Helsinki later on became like my second home university. I spent a ton of time there. And back then also my then boyfriend lived in Finland. So it kind of worked out. Okay, I spent a lot of time in Finland studying there. And also, part of my personal life was there. So I probably spent during these master's degree years, I spent out of the 2 years, first 1.5 years I spent in Finland. And then during that time, I also started teaching Finnish. So what I did for a long time was I taught actually medical professionals who were Estonians and who wanted to go to work in Finland. So I would teach them the Finnish language. And the reason why a lot of healthcare professionals went to work in Finland was that the salary was just so much higher. So these two countries used to have like a big difference, as far as like salaries and how much like the cost of living. Now the gap is definitely closing quite a bit, but back then there was a huge movement of like healthcare professionals going to work in Finland, and they needed to know the language. So I was the one teaching them, and it was a really, really intense work. So the last half a year of my master's got extremely busy. So I was teaching these healthcare professionals, and I also took on a little job as a high school Finnish teacher. So I did that. And I remember some of the days were really, really crazy. Like at the same time, I was working on my master's thesis, and I have this habit of putting a lot of things, doing them at the same time, which you'll see examples of even later on too. But yes, this master's it got pretty busy. And I remember there were some evenings, because there were private classes that I was teaching, that I left my office like 10:30 in the evening. And then back then I was always running. I never missed my run. So I ran 6 days a week, and I would be up like something ridiculous, like 5 a.m. to do my run or go swimming. And then the cycle started again, teaching the high school kids, going to classes for my own master's, writing my thesis, and then teaching the teachers. And this is how my days went. And honestly, this was also the first time when I got like mentally into a pretty stressed out place. And I just had to like stop at one point, take like a couple of weeks off to completely reset everything in my brain, because I was really, really overworked. But after that break, I just kept going because I had my degree to work on. So I would say that during this whole time, the lifestyle of, the studying and, working on my master's and thinking I'm probably going to continue to doctorate too, I liked the lifestyle, but I didn't have this like super like this desire to like become a huge like linguist or like do big things in the academic world. I was just like cruising. I was just, okay, I think I'm going to do the next thing because I don't know what else to do either. So let me take that next step on this academic path, right? And then the decision to continue to doctorate was born actually the same way. I wasn't exactly sure what I'm going to do, because I knew that I don't want to be a teacher full time. I've never really liked, I don't know, maybe I just saw too much of it when I was growing up. My mom was a teacher. She just recently retired, and I just know that this work is it's really difficult. So all you teachers out there, I truly admire what you're doing, but I knew that I don't want to do this full time. It's just a lot. It's like you never stop working. You never stop working. You can close the door of your classroom and then you go home and you continue. So at least this is how I saw it. This is how it was for me and my mom too. So I realized I don't want to do it. So what do I do then? And like I said, a really great relationship with my supervisor who really believed in me and saw something in me, and I had good grades and everything. I was like, you know what? I still don't know exactly what I'm going to do. So let me just continue on and do the doctorate too. And of course, I realized that this is going to be more work, right? It's going to be a lot more work involved in this. It's going to be 4 years. It's going to be something bigger that I have to put together. It's not going to be like, a small written little thing. This stuff is going to be huge, right? You have to write an actual thesis, and you have to write a lot of articles that you're going to try to submit to like linguistics journals. And I will tell you that this is a pain in the ass. It's really hard. This is the goal, right? To get your publications to like a big journals, but they're gonna be, of course, reviewed so many times by this committee who always finds a lot of errors and a lot of mistakes and a lot of things that could be improved. They send it back to you, and then you fix and correct and improve, and then you send it again, and they read it again. This is a really, really, really long journey. And to get one article published will take so much effort. I don't think a lot of people realize how much it is, but it is insane amount of work. And of course, not only are they telling you what to do different, change things, also your supervisor there who wants you to improve things. And obviously, most of these articles that I wrote were written either in Finnish or English, and my English was not nowhere near to like where it is right now. And of course, like the actual the style of English that you have to write in if you want to get like a academic paper submitted is a whole next level. To be honest, I don't even know how I did this. Of course, I got a lot of help from my supervisor, but my English was a total mess back then. Well, maybe not a total mess. I can't say that if I was on a PhD level, but it was not super good at all. So I continued to work on these articles because if you want to earn your PhD, you have to have a certain number of like articles written and published in important linguistic journals. And my thesis was going to be a collection of articles, so I had to write a lot of them. I think eventually I got 6 of them, and this is what my final kind of work was right, to collect these, to get these articles, to get them submitted and approved for these journals. So this is what we worked a lot on during my PhD. And also at the same time, it was a really fun time. So one thing that I learned during this time and still appreciate to this day is the flexibility of your own schedule. And this is what I don't ever want to be taken away, or I don't want to ever give away anymore, because yes, you have to work hard when you're on your own schedule, which is what I did, right? Which is where I was when I was working my PhD and writing all these articles and doing the research and these hours at the library. So I definitely had some really intense days, some really intense nights, but also at the same time, I was able to take more time off if I needed to, or if I didn't have anything super big going on. And I love this. And I think I got into the habit of living this way. And that's why I appreciate what I'm doing right now too. Of course, I have, I work with my clients, I have the client calls, but I can still have a lot more flexibility than a regular like 9 to 5 job. If you're doing this, absolutely fine. Like different things work for different people, but for me, I just knew once I had gotten the taste of like the flexibility of a schedule, I was like, okay, I'm okay with like occasionally pushing myself to the max and get the stuff done, and then I'm gonna rest as hard as I just worked. So that seems to be working for me. So during this time, when I enrolled in the PhD program, I actually started traveling a lot more too, because there's so many linguistic conferences that we wanted to go to. So we mostly went with my supervisor, a couple of other PhD students from the same program, and we really got to travel a lot. And it was a great time because back then, Estonia was still a fairly new member of the European Union, and I think they actually helped us quite a bit with like financially. They wanted to help the newer countries, so they really supported our travels. And this was I was really lucky during that I was studying during that time. So we traveled all over Europe. We would go to Finland. I don't know how many times. There was a million times. Then also Poland and Norway and Germany and Denmark, like a lot of countries, Spain. just for different conferences. So what happens at a linguistics conference is that you submit your topic of your presentation, and if they approve it, then you go there and then you do your presentation talking about whatever grammatical structure that you're working on or whatever your topic is. And so the branch of linguistics that I worked with, it's actually called cognitive linguistics. I'm not going to get into too much detail here about what it exactly is and how it works, but basically this is what I did. I looked like the structures and semantics and all that through the lens of cognitive linguistics, and we, like I said, traveled a lot, went to a lot of conferences, and those times were super fun because of course you go there to work, but at the same time you can have fun too, right? So back then I was still a runner. I ran throughout the whole program. I did. And every time we would go to a new place, so let's say there's a conference in Spain somewhere, then you get there the day before, you go running, you go see. What I always did, the day before I would go running, go see where the venue is from my hotel, and then I would come back, and the next morning I know where to go. So definitely got to see different cities a little bit too. Not so much, it's not like full-on traveling, but you would always have like maybe like a day before the conference and then the day of the conference, so you could like hang out a little bit more, look, check out the city. So we did the conference, did the presentation. They're always quite nerve-wracking because you have to present in a foreign language in front of lots of people, and they can ask you questions. And it was fun time, but it's definitely challenging too. I was definitely nervous. I was always worried about my language, and it was tough. It was fun, but it was tough. So we traveled a lot, and also we started traveling a little bit outside of Europe too, which is how I came to the US even for a couple of conferences, which is really great. I had been to the States one time. 2009 was my first time in the States, when my then boyfriend gave me as a present for my completing my master's degree, a trip to New York, which is really, really awesome. That's my first time in the States. But then 2010, me and my supervisor, we came to this cognitive linguistics conference in San Diego, and it was super awesome. Like California was really nice, and like for a little girl from a little country to see, like, oh my goodness, this does look like in a TV show, or like it really is so different and so cool and so sunny, and there's the beach, and the streets are so wide. By the way, the first impression was like, everything is so freaking huge here. I remember that. So like the streets were bigger, cars were bigger, houses were bigger, everything was so much bigger. So that was super interesting. So anyways, we did the conference, and then the following year, 2011, I got a scholarship again. My scholarship was to UC, so I forget now, Boulder, yeah, UC Boulder in Colorado. And so I got a 1-month scholarship so that I could participate in linguistics summer school. So me and a couple of other friends from the same PhD program from the University of Tartu, we got to come here. And this was a really fun month, extremely fun month. You could like take so many different courses, but honestly, like I said, I started feeling more and more that I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly convinced that I want to do like linguistics as the main thing, that I want to like give my life to it, or this is what I really enjoy doing. Because that 1 month of the linguistics summer school, yes, I went to class, but I also skipped a lot of classes. And I was like, hey, I'm in Colorado. I have this marathon coming up, and I'm in like this high altitude. I'm going to take advantage of that. I was running probably more than I was actually studying. Of course, I got the studies done, the things done, and submitted the final work and all that. I did it, but I was kind of like half ass in it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do the bare minimum, but also I ran a ton. We went out a ton, of course, went like, there's a lot of like late night drinking and pizza, and it was work, but it was mixed like work and fun, and probably more leaning towards fun, to be honest with you. So that was it. And then eventually what kind of brings me to this like pivotal point of this career change, where that started to happen, was that I got another scholarship. Yes, I got really good at getting scholarships because I had good grades and all that, and had submitted a lot of A lot of my articles were published in different journals, and they always look at that when you apply for a scholarship, and I had a good number of them. So I got a scholarship to do like the last year of my PhD thesis somewhere else. And this scholarship was now a bigger one. So this was now a good chunk of money that actually allowed you to live, and not like the first couple of ones where you just barely could get your rent paid. But this one was going to be a bigger one. And my supervisor asked me, where would you like to go? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, you know what? I think you would really like the States. And there are two schools that I would think about if I were you. Like one was UC Berkeley, where I actually ended up being, and the other one was in Houston, Texas. And he said, I think you can allow Berkeley a lot more. And also all the cognitive linguistics guys, like the the most important professors who kind of started this whole movement of cognitive linguistics, they were all in UC Berkeley, right? And he's like, you get to meet them all. You get to meet this guy and that guy and the third guy, and talk to them and all that. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Let's try. So I tried, and I ended up getting the scholarship. And I was like, yep, I'm going. And I got to say that the reason why I wanted to go so far, yes, I wanted to totally like experience a new country, but I will say also, and I'm not proud of this, but I will say this, that my personal life was also at a place where I was absolutely not happy. I was getting really, really unhappy in this relationship, and I just knew that I have to get out. And I know that this is not what a responsible adult does, like goes and just takes off and like, hey, see you later. But this was me. I needed this space, and I needed to get away. I needed to get away as far as possible so that I can clear my mind and kind of decide what's next, because I was feeling like the relationship I was in, this is not the right thing for me. A lot of things started to feel wrong. And then I had this opportunity to leave, and I did it. And so it was a really, really great time. I think I mentioned in another podcast episode too that this really ended up being the best time of my life, best year of my life by far. And when I came here, I was still this really kind of shy person. I didn't even know like who I am, what I want to do. I still didn't know. Can you imagine? I was enrolled in a PhD program. I was this close to finishing it, right? It was my last final year. I still didn't know what I want to do, right? I was like, what, 27 years old, and still kind of trying to figure myself out, and kind of thinking, is this the right thing? I don't have the really right feeling about the whole linguistics thing. I was starting to get like a little bit bored. I was like, it's so much like alone time. It's just like sit in the library, do the work. The things don't really excite me, but let me see, like maybe I'm not understanding it correctly, right? Maybe this 1 year will kind of accelerate things and clear them up for me, and will make me like realize that this is really what I want to do. And I will say that ironically, it actually ended up being the opposite, because I realized my eyes just kind of opened. My eyes totally opened. I almost like woke up, and I met a lot of people who I became good friends with, and who were doing something completely different than what they went to school for. So for example, I would meet a guy who he had a high like business degree, and now he was a yoga teacher and a photographer. I was like, wait a minute, you can do that? How's that work, right? You went to school for something else. Or I would meet, multiple people who had this story. Also, my now husband, Hugh, right? So when I met him, I learned that he has a degree in biology, and he's not a day in his life has he spent on like anything biology. As soon as he finished got his degree, and he didn't go as far as I did with it, but still, right? He has owned multiple online businesses and made all his income from online businesses, and he has worked everything out himself, like learning how to do marketing, learning so many different things. Like he is totally self-taught, right? And it has nothing to do with what he went to school for. I was like, wait a minute, this is a possibility. And it started to clear up in my mind that, oh, I could do this too. What do I really want to do? What do I want to do? And I realized that what I had done all the time throughout this long journey, I'd always been active. I was always been interested in health and fitness. I was even writing for an Estonian health magazine, right? So I was contributing to that. And this is what always got me excited. It wasn't like the linguistics articles that got me like pumped up and excited about like, oh, let's do more research, figure this thing out. It was when I was able to write for this health magazine, like, hey, they could like send me an email like, hey, we need an article on the topic of XYZ, like it's like fitness related, food related, something like that. These are the things that always got me fired up and excited. And this was like first on my priority list, like I'm gonna get this done first. So I loved it. And also, like some people had asked me advice like about weight loss or about marathon training, if I could help them with a like a marathon workout plan, how to prepare for it. And I knew this stuff. And I was like, of course I can do it. I like doing it. So why did I never thought that I could do this as a like a real job? But I think when I was really young and when I just got started, after high school, I always thought that, okay, like I like the fitness stuff, but this couldn't be like the real thing that how I make my living. It just felt like I was just a hobby. But now I was like, no, my hobby could become my job. So this last year actually was really pivotal in that way, that it was supposed to, make me really like keep me on this path of like academic life and all that. But it actually ended up being the opposite, because I met all these people and saw all these examples and experienced a whole new different life and met a lot of friends. And I realized that when I was hanging out with other like linguistic students, I just didn't have so many things in common with them as I did have with like people in the running group or in the hiking group. And I also, like, quite frankly, I didn't have this like desire to learn more about linguistics, because I think if you're really truly excited about something, interested in something, you learn this stuff on your free time too. This is what I do now all the time. Like, oh, I want to read this article, that, or like learn more about how to lift or more another detail about nutrition. It's like, it's fun to me, but linguistics wasn't really that fun to me. And I realized that's why these conversations also with other students were like where I felt behind, when I felt like smart enough, because I had never gone the extra mile to figure out something different, or like it wasn't my true passion. And it became more and more clear to me. And so after this 1 year, I was like, yes, I know that I have to change. And I made the change and pulled the trigger. And I knew that the day when I was going to get my PhD, this is when I'm going to close that chapter. It was, in a sense, it wasn't actually a difficult decision, because I knew that this is what I have to do. But of course, it was a little bit of like, am I going to disappoint somebody? Like, how am I going to tell my mom? How am I going to tell my supervisor that this is my decision? But I had to do this. And of course, things got really, really crazy towards the end of it, because I had like finished all my articles and, almost everything was done. But then there's still this like final part of the whole PhD journey, where you have to put this stuff together and write it in a, put together like you're literally writing a book, right? So put it together, get all the finishing touches done. But by that time, I had already decided I'm going to be a personal trainer. I'm going to start a different career. So this is when things got really crazy. So when I came back from the States and I had just a little bit left to do, but probably the most intense part of the PhD to do, I was like, I'm going to do my personal training certification. So I got to work on that at the same time. And also what else I did at the same time was I had started translating a paleo nutrition book from English to Estonian, because there's this publisher that asked me to do it. I was like, okay, I could use extra money, let's do it. So I did that. I translated, and I also still had a couple of those private students, same like healthcare professionals who were going to Finland. So I was teaching that. So I was doing 4 things. Plus, I was training really hard. So this is, again, it's like I couldn't do one thing at a time. I had to do like million things at a time. But the personal training certification just got me so excited that I was like, I want to do this. I don't care if I get super busy. And I did super busy. And it was a really hard time, because eventually I ended up needing like sleep medicine and all that to actually sleep, because I was under so much stress. But it was my true desire. Like, this is what I would call, this now was my burning desire to do, and like to figure out how I can make a living out of this and all that. And that's what kept me going. So this is how you can tell too, are you really excited about what you're doing? Does it get you going? Does it get you feel like, oh, I want to do this, I want to help people with this, this is fun? And this is where I finally found like, yeah, that's the stuff. And it had been like bubbling inside me the whole time, right? but I just didn't want to look at it or didn't want to admit it, or was maybe also like there's expectations, or like a lot of people thought you're really good at this linguistic stuff. Your grades are good, maybe you're kind of gifted, and I just kept doing it because of a lot of that thing, and I wasn't truly listening to my true passion. So once I kind of released that and looked at it and realized it, things got so much more fun, right? And of course, like this decision to move on to personal training, and after years after nutrition too, this decision was born when I was still writing my PhD. And so a lot of people who I shared this with, they asked me, oh, are you going to drop the PhD now? I was like, no, I'm going to finish it because I only have literally like a month or two left here. I'm not going to leave like 9 years or 10 years of work just like hanging and walk away from it. Obviously, I'm gonna finish it, but then I'm gonna close this chapter. And so this is what I did. So September 19, 2014, I got my things, everything finished. I earned my PhD. I had the defense, went really successfully. And after that, I haven't done much, almost anything at all with linguistics anymore. For a little while, I had my own small company, a translation company. I was the only person there, the owner, and the only person actually worked there. So I translated. I did like some Finnish, English, Estonian. So these three languages that I worked with. So I had this company, and then I also worked for like a couple of other companies, helped them with a little bit of like linguistic stuff, but nothing as major and nothing like academic. None of the articles, I haven't submitted anything since then, not planning to either. I feel like right now I've moved away from this very, very far already. I wouldn't even remember how to do a lot of things because it's been 9 years and no practice, but honestly, I don't miss it. And I'm glad that I had the experience. So sometimes I'm thinking, I spent 9 years doing what I wasn't really passionate about. But then again, it doesn't help me to think about it this way, because I am where I am right now because of what I did. And like I said, I got this opportunity to come to the States and have my best year here because I was studying linguistics, because I was enrolled in this PhD program. So and when I was here, I met all these people. My eyes completely opened. I finally realized what I truly want to do. Also during this year, obviously met my husband. So a lot of really great things happened, and they would not have happened had I not been, in this PhD program. So in that way, I'm looking back to it with a lot of gratitude. And then at the same time, I'm like, oh, I spent so much time doing what I wasn't truly enjoying. So this is the story. And I will say that the career change, it was clear. It was clear to me that I have to do this because I wasn't happy with what I was doing. I wasn't feeling fully aligned. I was feeling a little bored. I was feeling like I'm not excited about this. And I feel like you have to be at least a little bit excited about your work, because if you're not, think how many hours every week you spend working. And if this is something that you don't like, let alone love, then it's going to be super hard. It's going to be very stressful. It's going to be like, I don't want to do this, but you want to have this feeling of like, yes, this is good. This is what I like to do. Because when you have this feeling, it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like super stressful. Of course, I still have stress, but it's not like the stress of like boredom or like I have to do things. It's more like, oh, I get to figure this thing out. I get to do this stuff. It's fun. Let's see how this client is doing. Oh, I see progress. Like there's like wins, and you want to learn more, and you're excited about stuff, and you want to keep like getting better. So this is how you know that you are way more aligned with what you want to do. And this is definitely not how I felt when I was doing all these other things. So I hope that this episode inspired you, if you maybe feel stuck yourself right now. So maybe you learned something from it, and if nothing else, maybe it was just an interesting story to hear. So thank you so much for being here with me today. Let me know if you have any questions about this topic. I'm happy to answer, and see you again in the next episode. Take care.